Hi, everybody, and welcome to the first pre-recorded episode of Homefiniti Beyond. We are closing out December with a conversation with 3 ONeil team members who are in various stages of the home buying process. 2 are specifically in the new home buying phase of things, and 1 is still deciding. And we are going to talk to them about the pros and the cons of the different stages, what they found to be useful in terms of digital marketing and digital content offerings on websites, and what swayed them to make the choices that they did make, and how we can kind of use that information to craft some of our planning for our builders. So let's introduce everybody down the line and tell us where you are in the home buying phase.
I'm Megan English, and let's start at the very beginning. I am in the very beginning stages of possibly buying a home. I relocated from Maryland to Texas back in August, and renting currently, which in my mind I like building that equity. So all of the owning versus renting graphs that we've built in our day, I'm definitely on the owning side. But just couldn't find the availability at the time, and really just kind of keeping my eye open in the current neighborhood I'm in. But it's a big master plan community, builds new construction, and there's also resale inventory as well.
And you are not a first-time home buyer, correct?
No. This will be the 3rd home or 4th home that I would be buy. I actually still own my home in Maryland and renting that out currently. But most of the homes I've owned are 1960 and before, so very old homes that have either been renovated or we did the renovation ourselves.
Okay. All right. And that is a perfect lead into Rachel, who, go ahead, tell us all about your home buying.
I am a new home buyer, first-time home buyer. I've actually signed my sales contract, and I am just waiting for my home to be built.
And did you buy with a local or a national builder?
I built with a local builder.
Okay, very good. And Jenna?
So I am finished. We closed on our home in June. We built a townhome with a national builder, and it was our first home.
Very good. Okay. And both of you, I think we have talked a little bit before this, both of you were slightly influenced by some of the things Megan just mentioned about owning resale homes, right? That you needed to do some work to them. So what were some of the criteria that you had in the beginning of your home buying process, and did they change over the course of it, and if so, how?
So our big things were, it wasn't in our budget, of course. We were first-time home buyers. We were living at home to save money, so we were focused on, was it a monthly payment we were comfortable with and an amount of cash to close that we were comfortable with, and then making sure that the home was like updated, so either new or renovated. We did not want to be going and doing projects. And we started looking at resales and would walk through and just count the things that needed to be fixed or updated or gutted, and it just added up quickly.
And was it the price of doing those things or the thought of having to manage that process that was so overwhelming?
Honestly, both.
Yeah.
We're not handy. I don't even know. I mean, like painting would be overwhelming.
Right.
So the idea of a new home where everything was what we wanted and we didn't have to touch it again for like 10 years at least was very enticing.
Okay.
Spoken like a true project manager.
Someone else do it. I'll move in when it's time.
Right. I will make sure you're doing it correctly.
Yes. Yeah. My situation was very similar to Jenna's. We were really focused on budget, making sure everything was going to work out in that realm, and then also availability. The market we were looking in, there was limited resources, and everything was super expensive.
And it got snatched up within 3 days of going on market.
Right.
So
Yeah,
as a first-time buyer, we were
so
like,
quick.
we need some time to think on it.
Oh, yeah.
And just to give some perspective on timeline here, you moved in June of 2020. When did
2021.
2021,
Yes.
Thank you. We just lost a whole year in the pandemic, so I'm a little off on my numbers. When did you start the research and consideration phase? Like, I know you went through a period of time where you were saving money before you even kind of got into it. So when do you think you really started looking to when you actually moved in?
Well, so we signed our contract with our builder around Thanksgiving
Of 2020. Okay.
And we were probably looking casually on like Redfin and stuff in the months leading up to that. But we started looking really seriously like a week before.
Okay.
Like we like booked a few home tours on Redfin. We feel like we saved enough money. We're probably close to being able to pull the trigger. And then looked at our new home community shortly after that. And after our first visit there, we were like, yes, we like
Okay.
this.
So the preliminary research phase was long and drawn out, but once you were like ready to
ready.
speak to someone, you made a decision like that.
Yes.
Okay. And how about you? What was your timeline?
I was pretty much the same. I would say all through the pandemic, 2020, we were looking at resale homes. And then early this year, it was just like, forget the resale market. We're done with this. Let's go new home builder all the way. And then just kind of showed up, pulled the trigger, because that was the only lot available.
And when did you sign your contract?
I signed in May.
And when do they have a timeline for you? Have they broken ground?
We have not broken ground. I'm not clear on the timeline.
Okay.
So I'm just fingers crossing it for sometime next summer.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. And how about you and your timeline or lack thereof?
Yeah, the timeline for me is when I feel comfortable with the return of my investment. I think that has been just being in the industry and knowing what builders have gone through over the past year, 18 months with supply chain and lumber and cost inflation and things like that. It just was, I had an intimate knowledge of what was going on in the marketplace. So it makes it really hard for me not to just keep my finger on the pulse of the prices and the availability. Inventory at the Houston suburbs, it's very low, and the prices are continuing to increase. So I think it's just for me hard to swallow. So I've just been, but I like the idea of owning, and I like the idea of putting my roots down. Mm-hmm. So I'm not opposed to it. The timeline is more gut instinctual.
And we talked about this a little bit earlier, but you are fully in the research phase right now,
Yes.
right? Like you're doing drive-bys, you're checking stuff out. You draw the line at any form of communication,
Yes,
right?
don't
That's
talk
where
to
you're
me.
like,
Yeah,
I don't want to be contacted. I just want to like be a drive-by.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like similar to, I think, where Jenna was coming from, it's like you want to be the most educated before you walk into that conversation. You want to know what you want to understand what your budget is, you want to know the process. I think that that having all of that information at my fingertips, I will drive to the community and sometimes get out of my car where the model is and walk around, and then get right back in my car and drive home and go to the website and look at the house that I just looked at, or look at what the inventory homes are available.
And I feel like that kind of version of research versus ready to buy is fairly typical these days. I feel that way about almost any bigger purchase that I make. Like I want to be able to do all the research that I can, be as educated as I can as a consumer before I interact with anybody for two reasons. One, I don't want to waste a salesperson's time if I'm not actually going to do anything, because that seems like rude to me. To be like,
awkward.
Right, let me bother you, and then I'm not going to close the sale. There's not even a possibility that any sale is going to be closed. And two is because I don't want to be pressured into a decision that I'm not ready to make, and I would feel guilty and be like, well, I'm just buying the house to be nice. You know, like I think that's fairly common. So that kind of leads me to the marketing and the website side of things. What research tools do you currently use, and what did you use leading up to your decision-making process?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think I use all the online digital tools available as far as Zillow, the local ILS sites or MLS sites, and the builders' websites, or if there is an agent or a brokerage, sometimes it's a specific agent that's listing the home, and they usually have a really good wealth of knowledge on their site as well. So, I mean, I'm looking at a lot of numbers too. So I'm looking at price per square foot and some of the, because that for me is the easiest way to quantify and really look at where my value is.
And I know on places like Zillow and Redfin, your price per square foot is listed out there. Are you taking advantage of any of the calculators there to figure out anything, or do you just already know, like, this is where I want my price per square foot to be?
I think it's just helping me gauge, because especially in a master plan community, and when you have when you're looking at similar sized homes and similar criteria, it just helps me compare them, because I think that it just size, and it doesn't include finishes, but that's where I start to enable, like, okay, well, if I was going to invest this much, and then I'll use the calculators on the builder's site spec homes help me gauge the most because those homes have the options that I would probably
They're
look
already
for.
built
They're
out
already built
with
out.
everything, so you can
kind of have a good idea
Yeah.
of what it would look like once
Okay.
I start adding all the things that I want.
Okay. And Rachel, you mentioned that it was a little bit of an opposite situation for you, that there was more research done at a different point, correct?
Yes. I feel like the builder that we were working with, their website just didn't have the resources that I needed to make the decision. So we kind of started by going to the community, walking through the model home, and then we came back home and I tried to dissect what I could on the website. But I found myself going to mortgage calculators, off of the builder's website and trying to figure out what we could afford there. I was looking at, I wish they would have had virtual tools for me to use, like design tools or more virtual tours or more photos, but that just wasn't there. So I kind of had to pull the trigger and then.
And in terms of virtual tours, having walked through the model, did you just want to kind of refresh your memory in terms of like, I walked through the model and I maybe didn't retain what the bedroom looked like or where the bathroom was in relation to the closet or something like that. Yeah. So you wanted to kind of revisit your experience.
Right. Like, I feel like the initial time walking through the model was very overwhelming. Like, I didn't know if I wanted to buy a house, if I wanted to buy this house, if I, what was going to come from that. But I wish I would have had the virtual tour to go back on and really envision myself in my home and where my furniture would be. And, is my dog going to be happy here, and et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah.
Okay.
So I was kind of similar because I was doing research ahead of time, like on Redfin, looking at resales, and we just kind of on a whim drove out to the community, just kind of like felt good about it, went into the model, spent like 2 hours walking through and talking to a salesperson, and I went back and did a deep dive on their website, but they had all of those tools that you wish you had.
Yeah.
So I have watched the walkthrough video of my floor plan, I can't tell you how many times, just to be like, okay, where's our couch gonna go, and what about this, and our stuff can go here, and we'll get this decor. It like helps build that emotional attachment, like, oh my God, this is gonna be our house, like our stuff's gonna go in here.
And that's what I feel like I'm missing from, like, I'm very excited, obviously, to be building my first house, but I don't feel very emotionally attached to it. I don't have a lot of communication with my salesperson. I don't have a lot of tools available to me online to revisit. So I'm just kind of in this weird space right now.
And before we dive a little further into the process post-contract, I wanted to ask specifically the two of you, what is it that sold you on your home, your builder, your community, all of it? What made you say this is it?
For me, it really was price and availability. But it was a plus that I liked the style home that they were building. It was a fully new community. Our salesperson is a very nice lady. So, it just kind of all fell into place for us.
Okay. And Jenna?
So I mentioned we just kind of felt good about the community's vibe when we drove by and walked through the model. I did talk to Dennis and Megan before we signed the contract to say, what do you think about this builder? And then we actually have another coworker, Peter, built with a different national builder and did not have a good experience. And so that was important to me too, to stay away from who he told me he had a bad experience with.
Okay. And earlier we discussed, you guys both mentioned the financial side of things, pre-approvals, lenders. Can you talk to me a little bit about that and how that affected your decision making?
Sure. I mean, we lucked out. Our builder has preferred lenders that they work with, and they were also offering assistance for closing costs. So once we heard that, it was kind of like, it's right in front of us. Why can't we just take it?
Same.
Yeah.
And had you talked to lenders beforehand?
I had filled out some, online forms on what I can afford and, will I get pre-qualified, stuff like that, but it was nothing serious prior to that.
We also played with those like affordability calculator tools. But before we visited our community, we did talk to some other lenders and just like get pre-approved for like ballpark numbers. But it actually helped us feel comfortable extending our budget a little bit more than what we thought. So that's when we were like, okay, maybe we can look at new construction. But then once we were there, our builder was also offering the closing costs assistance, which was huge, and was like, okay, if you're looking for low down payment, if you want to eliminate PMI, like this is the preferred lender to talk to. And that worked out.
Okay. So they had multiple preferred lenders that you could have spoken to, and you chose to speak to one based on what your sales professional guided you towards.
Exactly.
Okay. And did you also have multiple to choose from?
I did. Yep.
Fascinating. Okay. And I know that this is ahead of the curve for you, but do you have lenders that you're speaking to ahead of time? Would something like this influence influence your decision?
Well, so I think I'm in a little bit different position because I already own a home, and then I'm technically this would be a second home, but it would be my primary residence. So I have to have a little bit of different guidance in certain departments depending on whether I want to keep that home, sell that home. I got capital gains chasing me down, so I have to seek advice that's maybe a little bit more personalized and that has my financial best interests and my tax implications.
Well, and you also have 3 home purchases under your belt as historical reference, right?
Yes.
For like what kind of information a lender, what kind of information you want to give to a lender and what kind of lender you'd be looking for.
But I'm also dealing with cross-state differences too, because there's different laws and different regulations in Maryland versus Texas. So I'm also just re-educating myself on the whole process.
Okay. So once you guys got through your research phase, one thing I did want to circle back on the research phase was interactive floor plans, building out, talking about the different finishes, seeing, a finished spec home with the finishes that you would want. How much availability of that was there for you guys? And if it wasn't available, would you have used it? Would you have liked to have had the ability to kind of see what your preferred options would look like?
Oh, yeah. So I had those tools. They had video walkthroughs, interactive floor plans with furniture placement. But it's funny because it didn't really help me make my decision. We walked through the model and made that decision, but it was afterwards that I was continuing to go back and just play with it and what are we gonna do with our stuff and that emotional attachment I talked about. But it wasn't huge in making the decision. Walking through the model is what helped with that decision.
So in other words, though, it has been influential in making you a happy customer.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
A buyer who feels satisfied with their end result, as opposed
super
to
helpful when
just
trying
a
to
homeowner.
buy furniture and we were coming from our first apartment, we had a terrible couch that we had no interest in. We bought all new furniture basically, and so I was visiting those tools over and over again to plan for that.
Mm-hmm. So then, all of your future investments in the home paid off.
We're based on that.
Were based on that and felt really good. Which again, that customer happiness. We talk to our clients all the time about this in holding hands and building those relationships and making sure that they don't just sign the contract, but that they're happy on move-in day. Because there's a big gap between contract signing and move-in often, and there's a lot that can happen, right?
Oh, yeah. I pretty much forgot all of the options that I've already picked in the design studio. Just kidding. But, yeah, I mean, we didn't have that. But not really. But, yeah, we didn't have any of that available to us. I really wish we did. I would probably be playing on it today, if I had it. Definitely a big benefit to have that on your website.
Do you think it would have helped you speed up with the decision-making process of the design studio? If you didn't have to go into the design studio and pick that day, if you could have done some online research ahead of time, not just to feel more confident in it, but do you think it could have potentially dragged out your decision-making process and made you really think about it? Or do you think it would have helped maybe not just speed it up, but feel more secure in the decision?
I think it would have helped 100%. I was so overwhelmed. I already had ideas of what I wanted to see in my house. They didn't have those available when I got there. So if I would have had some design tools to play with ahead of time or some documentation on what they did offer, then I would have gone in a lot more.
You would have known and been prepared and been I can't have this flooring. I can only have this flooring.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. And my builder did not have an interactive design tool where you pick selections and see it come together. It was pretty low tech. They just emailed us a PDF of all our options and all the pricing, but we printed it out. We highlighted it. We made notes. But it was really nice because then by the time we got there, we pretty much knew everything we wanted and didn't have to have these awkward conversations in front of the design consultant. I want this. Well, I want this.
Yeah.
We ironed it out at home on our own time and went in feeling super confident.
Oh, yeah, that makes a huge difference.
So even a low tech PDF that you email someone is so much better than nothing.
Yeah.
And for you in your research phase, are those finishes something that you are kind of really taking into consideration? Would the ability to do those things influence your decision-making process in any way?
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement that it's really after I've oriented myself with what is out there, what's to be offered by the builder before I would start playing with the finishes and really building my dream home. Because I think that in the end, if I have the tools available to price it right, I think that's more important to me than being able to stay within a budget or stay within something that's reasonable means more to me than actually just playing and designing my dream home and then it being completely unaffordable. So I think that's...
Well, and that's interesting that you say that because we did not ask this. I did not pre-talk about this with you guys, but when you bought your homes, do you have a timeline for how long you feel like you're going to end up being in them?
So we're in a fine school district, not districted to the best schools in that school district. So we joke that if we have kids, that starts our timeline for we need to move by the time they're in school. So, I mean, this house will probably work for us for 5 to 10 years, and it's our first house, and we're good with that. Like, we weren't like, this is our forever home.
Right.
This is what's good for us at this point.
Yeah, I think that's honestly, again, going back to the return on the investment. I think I'd rather make a smart decision that is going to make me feel comfortable that it's going to resell and I'm not going to lose my shirt on it than I'm building my dream home that has everything that I can stuff into the top end of my budget. Because in the end, what I'm seeing now is that there's resale versus new construction, and those are the questions that are playing in my head, is saying, how much time and energy can I invest in renovating and making a few cosmetic updates, and I can spend ultimately less versus having somebody else do it and it being new construction. So
Right, and being more to your taste.
Right.
But maybe having a longer lead time until when you can move in or any of those things.
Or being in a more established neighborhood. I'm in a different criteria phase. I have a 6-year-old. I'm looking at schools. There's a lot of other factors, moving parts that I need to keep in mind, that not just the aesthetics of the home.
And I think this conversation is really highlighting the difference between a first-time home buyer and not. Right? Because you do learn after you buy your first home and your second and third home that, there are certain things that you need versus want in a home, and that not all homes were meant to be lived in for a long time, right? Sometimes it just doesn't pan out that way. And other times, homes that you think are going to be short-term investments or short-term things turn out to be long-term. I've been in my home for 13 years. I think when I first bought it, I maybe thought I would be there for a long time. But about midway through this 13-year period, I was like, I'm definitely leaving. We're not staying. Right, we're not staying. And now I'm like, oh, yeah, we're staying. We're going to be here for a while.
Well, I have said I'm never moving again, so we might be here forever.
The moving is the hardest part. Yeah. I mean, I've never built a new home, but from the home buying process, the moving part is painful.
Y'all want to talk about moving cross country?
No. No, that blows my mind.
Yeah.
Different episode, Fred.
Right. So you talked about how your salesperson sent you the PDF of the design studio and everything, which brings me to our next topic, is the communication portion of everything. You've signed the contract, or maybe you haven't even signed the contract. Maybe ahead of that, you've toured the model. They have your contact information. What methods of communication did you prefer? What methods of communication did you feel lacked? And what methods of communications were you like, back off?
So before we signed the contract, our salesperson was so available. I could text her a question and she would respond immediately. That was so helpful. Once they were building the home, I would get every other week phone calls with our salesperson and our builder to give some updates, and then they would send email updates on the off weeks. They weren't always the best updates. I got an update that said that they were putting the deck on my house this week. We didn't order a deck. It was clearly just copied and pasted to everyone in the row. But then we went to visit that weekend and saw our cabinets were in, and they hadn't said that. And that's such a huge step.
Yeah, that's a big one. That really feels like it's a house.
Exactly.
We're close.
But we just discovered that ourselves.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
We got regular updates. They weren't always the best, but it was at least nice to hear from someone.
And you both are buying in proximity to where you currently live and where you lived, right? It wasn't a big deal to drive out there. And how
we
often?
went every weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Every weekend.
And they were kosher with they were fine, sure, you have access, it's your house, you have access?
I mean, we went on Sundays. No, at some point they locked it and we couldn't go in anymore.
That was your cue.
As long as we could get in on Sundays, we did it for as long as we could.
Okay, very cool. And I know you have not broken ground yet, so have you driven out there, though?
We drive out weekly just to see how the dirt moves around.
Okay.
You know,
All right.
But it's fun to see. We're in a townhome, so we've seen some rows ahead of us go up. I hope we're getting close, but I don't have great communication with my salesperson. It was okay in the beginning. We would communicate via email. I would have preferred text, but now it's kind of a ghost town.
And you mentioned earlier she was really nice.
She is really nice, and I love her. I would love to hear from her. I mean, we get occasional email updates, but it's like, you know, community updates. The nature path went in, or you know, the single family homes are being billable.
It doesn't help
me, but you know, it's okay. And what I really would like to see is a buyer portal. We have seen so many of our clients coming to us with robust buyer portals. I would love pictures to see of progress, you know, text updates, anything. Just give me anything, and I would look at it.
But a buyer portal would do what you guys talked about in your research phase, which is put some more control in your hands. Because you could access that portal when you wanted to see all the updates that had been made, as opposed to waiting to receive updates, right? So you could just log in
and see it
every so often and be like, oh, they've put more pictures in there.
And it feels more personalized, too, because like you said that you were getting community updates and stuff like that. But it's like, I would really like to know what's happening with my home. And even if it's just a picture of the dirt, I would love to see that. So
it's your dirt.
It's my dirt. Right. Correct.
That makes sense.
I think I'm so early in the process that hearing you talk about the communication, I am so used to using a real estate agent in the past that I feel like right now I'm in the phase where I'm just looking myself, but that when I get to the point where I'm serious, I will again enlist an agent just because I feel like I need that person to handle that communication for me. At this stage of my life, I'm like, I want somebody else to be the one talking and just tell me what I need to know, which it might sound a little spoiled, but I think it just helps. It's because the real estate market moves so fast, because of the inventory, because they know the market much more intimately, that I'd rather have that professional advice.
Well, I think that just speaks to your experience, because like I'm what's a realtor? Who pays a realtor?
We didn't even ask, but you guys, neither one of you used
didn't
an
even
agent.
consider it.
I didn't even think I needed one.
So even when you were looking at a resale.
Well, so we toured a few houses. We booked the tours on Redfin, so just like our Redfin agent met us at the house, but we never signed an agreement for her to be our actual agent. And then we did like 2 of those tours and then went to visit our builder. And so that was it.
Okay. And did you use an agent when you looked at resale?
Nope. I booked open house tours so that there were no realtors on site. I could just walk through the home. So smart.
My kind of planning. I like it.
Yep.
I love myself an open house.
Yes. Very nice.
I love to go to resale open houses and see what is what and not be bothered by the agent. Like, go talk to the other people in the house. I will tour myself. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the real estate agent, I was going to say for you, I find the nice thing about agents is that they are really trained on that customer service from start to finish, not just from contract to contract signing. They really help you cross the finish line. Yeah. So even with a builder, I think they would perform that same role.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if I went the resale or the sale route, I think I'd be happy to work directly with the salesperson. I think a lot of times the agent backs up and steps out unless there's something that needs to be communicated. But I think during the, okay, I'm serious, I want to find a home, they're the ones at least that can help me get access to homes sooner. Sometimes they have pocket listings or have access to listings that are about to come on the market. And sometimes those are your best chance at getting a home quickly because it is going.
Okay. And this is kind of circling back a little bit, but during this whole process, on the marketing side of all of this, how did you first become aware of your community and your builder? And are you aware of any marketing that may or may not have influenced your awareness and decisions?
I mean, mine is pretty easy. I live in the community where I want to find a home, and so a lot of signage and drive-by, that old school grassroots. But then, again, going back and doing my research, and I've been followed around by Facebook advertising every
Love
day.
myself a retargeting ad.
So, but again, I haven't signed up for any lists or anything to be communicated any other way. So all of mine is very active, searching, Googling, driving by.
And how about you?
Yeah, mine was kind of by luck. Our builder was building a community close to where my parents live, and my parents knew that I was hot in the market, and they were like, why don't you check this out? It looks like nice townhomes, something up your alley.
So the directional signs.
Yes, yes, very old school, just the signs.
Well, I mean, I think they're still play a
Oh, yeah.
crazy important role in brand awareness for builders.
definitely does.
Like, I became aware of lots of our clients that are local before I started working here because I saw their signs for communities that they were building in the area.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
I mean,
there's still some
no
value
shame
to
in the
signs,
directional sign
you know?
game.
No, I mean, it definitely like builds excitement. We're on the drive, and it's just like sign after sign after sign that my community's coming up on the right. So
Yes.
it's so exciting.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And for you?
So we were originally looking on Redfin, not specifically looking for a new home, but our builder was listing homes on Redfin in the area we were looking in. So that's how I became aware of them.
And also, we did discuss this a little bit earlier, but I too am a Redfin preferred shopper. I'm not moving, but I love to keep track of real
I
estate
still
in the
look
area,
all the
and I look
time.
constantly. I've recently become irritated because I'm like, why aren't there new homes coming up in my search? It's getting boring.
Is this like your Instagram feed now? It's a Redfin feed.
It's got a home spot on my. I mean, it's not there right now, but usually these are like dynamically generated, and Redfin is always in there.
Colin deleted it on purpose.
Probably. Please stop.
You are not moving.
So did you use Redfin and or Zillow?
I use Zillow, but I didn't find my community on Zillow or my home on Zillow.
Okay.
I just was searching the listings.
And you go straight to the source, right? You use the the local
Yeah,
MLS.
the HAR is kind of where I've been doing a lot of my research. I feel like it's the most current, up to date, particularly in my community.
Okay. Now, when you guys were in the thick of things, and if you are going to their website still, do you find that you get ads for that builder or other builders because of your online activities?
I definitely get other builders' ads, but I have not gotten one from my own builder.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I feel like I'm the opposite. I get
Really?
ads for my builder and not others.
Okay. And you get for your
yeah.
community, you said. Do you get
My
other?
community and all surrounding.
I mean, we all have to take this with a grain of salt because we work with builders every day.
Right, exactly,
So
true.
we're on a lot of builder websites. But
But really hyper local to where I am, so not in the community.
Properly
but
targeted, in other
properly
words?
targeted,
Yes.
correct.
so, you know, I have a soft spot for Facebook. I love it, even when they're really bad and do stupid stuff.
Like Meta.
Right. Oh, like Meta. But one of the things that is super, super cool about their retargeting ads is that some of their ads aren't retargeting ads. They're finding you because everybody has the pixel installed everywhere, right? So if you go to a builder who has a pixel installed, Facebook knows that and can show you ads for other builders because of that. And they just sent out promotional material about their shopping e-commerce targeting, but essentially they like call it smart e-commerce, like they can find your customers for you. Like, and I was telling you guys earlier, Instagram, they don't target me with houses currently. They do target me with really big beaded tacky seasonal earrings because they are my jam. Oh, I forgot to put my earrings in. And like big beaded like Southern Belle, really beady. Like I go on the websites and I'm like, oh my god, I love this, and then I click shop and it's like Greek life, team, go team, and I'm like, oh god, I don't care about that, but they all come up because I clicked on one ad, so now I get 37 other ads, and the builder stuff works the same way because I will notice that if I spend any amount of time on one of our builders' sites, I get builders that I've never even heard of coming out of the woodwork because I'll visit builders who don't live in my area. You know, I visit builders who are outside of you do too, right? So I'll get builders from Texas and California and wherever, and it's fascinating to me the way that it works. But the retargeting in particular, I mean, it is super effective. It does work. I mean, you see the same ad 6 times. You want to buy the thing. Even if it's just a house. Not just a house. Even if it's a house. A whole house. Right? So in any of the marketing that you encountered, the directional signs, any of that, did your overall awareness of that builder influence your opinion of that builder when you made the decision?
question.
I feel like our decision was really specific to that community's location, that home having what we wanted, that home being in the price range we were comfortable with. Like I said, I did ask about the builder's reputation, and I definitely took that into account, but it was we felt comfortable with that home in that community.
But you had awareness of that builder's brand
Yes.
before going in.
I did.
So if you hadn't known the builder, would you have been likely to maybe conduct a little extra research to get to know the builder?
Probably, and I might have even looked at more builders. Like, this was really the only model home we toured and the only builder we talked to.
Because you already had awareness.
Exactly.
And your only awareness of it was that the builder was near your parents' neighborhood, right?
Right.
And did that help you in it? Like, did you feel more comfortable because you're like, oh, I know that they build, I know who they are, I'm familiar with them?
Yeah, it made me feel a little bit better that, they're building communities everywhere, not just where I am. So, and I mean, it felt a little bit of comfortability too that my parents were bought into it.
Right.
So,
That certainly helps. And one question I did not ask is, you bought national, you bought local. Did you care whether they were local or national? Did that influence your decision in any way?
Not for me.
So it was not a hashtag shop local situation?
It's not. I mean, I might adopt that now because I like the way that sounds, but not sure.
Yeah, we didn't really care. Again, it was about like location, the home itself, having what we wanted.
Very good. I used to, one of my previous jobs was selling advertising in this terrible magazine that a local but national TV station just down the street tried to sell their bad airspace. So they made this like, do you remember the Smart Shopper?
No.
It was a high-end coupon.
Okay.
Oh.
Like South Moon Under was in there. No, not everybody's going to know what South Moon Under is. It's a high-end boutique. So it was a high-end coupon book. So this station came out with their version of the Smart Shopper, and you got TV ads for free when you advertised in their more expensive version of the Smart Shopper. But your TV ads aired at like 3 a.m. And it was like it was a bad deal, but you tried to sell it as a good deal because TV is TV and whatever. And he used to say, my sales manager used to say that it doesn't matter who the eyeballs are or whatever. At that point, it's like top of funnel marketing, and you're just trying to get eyeballs and brand recognition. And just like you order Domino's pizza, not because you love Domino's pizza, but because you're familiar with it, because they used to advertise all over the yellow pages. They were everywhere. So like, doesn't matter that you like the pizza or not, you are familiar with them.
Absolutely.
So you're bought in just because you have brand awareness of it. So I was just curious if brand awareness played, if it was like Domino's pizza. Like, oh, I know who that builder is, so I'm going to make that decision. It makes me feel more comfortable making that decision because I've heard of them before. So, because, I mean, that is one thing I learned from working here. There are a lot of builders out there.
There are a lot of builders. And I'm glad I work here because I have some knowledge of the process and builders. Like, my husband was clueless, and when I told him, like, I talked to some people from work, they gave our builder the thumbs up. He was like, okay, good, that makes me feel better.
Yeah.
Social proof, everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. We are just about finished here. I don't think I have any more questions on the dock. Is there anything else that you would like to share in terms of the experience from a buyer's perspective? Any other last website tidbits that you wish they did or did not have on their site?
No, but Megan, close your ears. Team new build. For sure. Yep.
So you're satisfied
I am
and
satisfied,
happy that you did
yes.
not go resale.
Yes. I feel much more at ease going into my fully new home.
Nice.
Yes.
I will say I am not, if we were to move, I would not probably end up in a new home, only because I'm very, very specific with where I would like to live, and that precludes my budget. But the idea of building a new home from scratch is like dreamy to me, to be able to be like, I'm going to orchestrate the whole thing and it's all going to be exactly what I want. That's like, oh
yeah.
Well, you say that, but it's really, here's your 4 floor plan, and here's the 6 options, and here's our selection of the designs. Like, unless you're going
Hollywood's
full
custom.
custom,
Is
it's quite structured.
yeah, but it's still new.
It is
and
still new. Very
shiny.
Yes.
Yeah. something about that is real appealing.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, thank you all for joining. I hope everyone has a Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy New Year, all the holidays, and we will be back live and in person in January. So, thank you all very much for taking the time to join us on this pre-recorded episode. Hopefully, we are able to edit it to look really fancy at the end.